Well, hello there, chasers. You chasing label people, purple people eaters. I'm just kidding, guys. Welcome to this this imprint review for March of 2025 from Imprint. This is 3 different releases from that slate. Yeah, I'm Stephen Billings. I got Andrew Cabral here, of course, from Chasing Labels podcast. Here to talk about these 3 films. The 3 films we're going to talk about today are Man Bites Dog from 1992, In the Bedroom, I think from 2001.
Yep.
And then Shattered Glass from 2003 are the 3 releases that we got from the March bundle. March bundle in general was pretty good, I think. I mean, these 3 right here, I think were really cool, solid kind of picks. What were the rest of the films in that bundle? I think you're getting it up for me.
I'm going to look it up right now just because I knew you were going to say that.
No, I was kind of stalling.
Oh, is that what you were doing? I need like a signal or something.
I was stalling a little bit.
So we've got, obviously, there's Factory Girl, The Weight of Water, In the Bedroom, Shattered Glass, and the movie Savior. And, of course, I said Man Bites Dog already, didn't I? Yeah. So... yeah, an interesting eclectic group, which I did cover here on Chasing Labels. These were announced back in December of 2024. As Imprint does, they announce things a few months ahead of time just to get people prepared on what their slate is going to be in the future. So you have plenty of time to make your decisions. And I think with this month, you kind of don't really miss out on much. At least from what I remember covering here on Chasing Labels, all of those movies are pretty solid. Even something like Savior, which is a movie that I'm pretty sure a lot of people haven't seen before. At least I had. And that was a movie starring Dennis Quaid, where he's kind of making his way through a war zone, escorting a pregnant woman. And this is taking place, I think, in like Serbia or Bosnia. It's like that conflict in the 90s. Interesting kind of movie from Dennis Quaid. But anywho, back to the task at hand. The movies we're talking about are Shattered Glass, In the Bedroom, and Man Bites Dog, which I'm pretty sure many of you probably have heard of before. If you haven't, we're going to get into that. But Stephen wants to start off.
Well, now let's just start off in that. We'll just start us that way. Shattered Glass.
Oh, we're going to go with Shattered Glass first.
Yes, I switcherooed it on you. Nice. 2003. This is directed by Billy Ray. I believe is his name. Billy Ray Robinson. No, I'm just kidding. No. Billy Ray. Also did, I believe, first of all, I believe this was kind of his feature debut.
It was indeed.
He also, he's done a lot of writing. He wrote on Captain Phillips. He wrote on The Hunger Games. What else did he direct? He directed Richard Jewell. Well, no, he wrote on Richard Jewell. What else did he direct? Let me see.
He directed Breach.
Ooh, Breach. I remember that. That has,
which is that kind of, was like an espionage type of movie.
Yeah, Chris Cooper, yeah.
Chris Cooper was in that along with Ryan Philippe. Came out in 2007, I want to say.
Yeah.
He also did the movie Secret in Their Eyes, which is a little bit underrated in my opinion. And he also directed the Last Tycoon TV series 3 episodes and the Comey Rule 2-episode TV miniseries as well. But most of his credits are from writing. He wrote Volcano, Heart's War, Shattered Glass, Flight Plan, Breach, State of Play, which is kind of an underrated movie in my opinion.
I didn't really love.
Is that the movie with Ben Affleck?
No, that's Russell Crowe.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't love it.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't love that one.
Negative Nancy.
I have the movie poster.
I have the movie.
I have the movie poster. If you want it.
I don't know if I'm that big of a fan of it.
Sure,
but he also directed Overlord, which is kind of super underrated.
I do like Overlord.
Yeah, Gemini Man, which is the Ang Lee film that people don't really like.
Not so good.
It's the one where Will Smith
plays a twin of
roles. I won't say anything else about that. Like you said, Richard Jewell, which is one of Clint Eastwood's more a decent recent films, in my opinion. Kind of if anything, I think it's a crown jewel in his recent films. And he also wrote the screenplay for Terminator Dark Fate, which
not so
people have forgotten about. No, but
Not
the
so-
movie Shattered Glass, I don't think is a movie that people should forget about because
no,
I think it's underrated. Um,
it is underrated. I think I don't know. It's one of them things where I just don't think it's seen. It's underseen more than it's
mm,
underrated. I think if people see this movie, they will properly rate this movie as being a solid film. I don't think this is a great film. I think this is a solid film, especially for a debut. It is a very for something that seems like it's kind of a big thing. It kind of has a very small feel to it, very
low
independent,
budget,
low budget
indeed.
feel to it. Yeah. So Hayden Christensen plays um, the kind of the main character that this is Stephen Glass, no relation. No, I mean, I know our last names ain't the same, but this is a different Stephen. He spells his name with a PH, which is
Yeah,
not
the
right.
cool way.
Stephen. So Stephen Glass, and Stephen Glass was at the time a well-known writer for, I think it's called the New Republic
Yes.
magazine. And so they wrote about, politics, pop culture things, stuff like that. I think they're based out of Washington. And so he was a very well-known and kind of, popular writer for them for a little while, because his stories were always very interesting and kind of sometimes like just hard to believe, out there. And he just always seemed to get really cool stories. And this isn't a spoiler. This is kind of what the movie is.
It's based on a true story, so you can literally look all this up. Like
Exactly.
it's been out there for like 30 years at this
Yeah.
point.
But it's based on a true story, and so ultimately what we end up finding out is that the newly crowned editor played by Peter Skarsgård starts to have suspicions that he is making up his stories to various degrees, whether it's changing, coming up and creating full websites, or creating messages on the under end for phone calls, or just making up people, making up sources, like making up just and in some cases just making up full stories. And just so, yeah, it's kind of I wouldn't say cat and mouse, but like it's definitely a kind of what would you call it? Like a long interrogation scene by Peter Skarsgård, who's continuously digging more into Stephen Glass and trying to figure out, like, is this real? Like, is he really making this up? Because he's very defensive. Stephen Glass is always very like, he uses a lot of like mechanisms, I think, to make people think he's a good person.
He's
He
a
gets
manipulator, a gaslighter.
he's a manipulator. He's a high end manipulator. Makes people feel sorry for him. He's and if you hadn't seen this and you've seen him playing Star Wars, some of the highlights of his acting in them Star Wars movies kind of show up in this movie. Like some of that like angstiness, some of that kind of, I would say, whininess plays in, but I would say that this role is a vastly better, more focused performance than anything he did in Star Wars. Andrew, please tell us your perspective.
Yeah, it's a movie that I hadn't seen in many years, but I've had it on DVD pretty much since the early days of me collecting. Because it was one that when you go into the indie section at a used DVD store, it was in there all the time.
Yeah.
Or even in the drama section, it was in there all the time. And I remember, fellow friends and collector and movie buff friends of mine basically saying, "Hey, you want to see Hayden Christensen as a good actor? Watch this movie."
See, that's what sucks is because we said that, and but honestly, we look now as more mature people. We're like, well, George Lucas sucks at directing actors.
The thing now, I mean, we're going off a little bit of a tangent, is that we have all kind of matured along those lines of like, it wasn't so much Hayden Christensen's inability as an actor within those Star Wars prequel films. It was more extenuating circumstances like not great dialogue, not great directing from George Lucas in terms of getting a high quality performance out of him. And with all of that said, he's very much been embraced by the modern day Star Wars fans, and Star Wars fans of our generation have really, he's become a beloved person. You know what I mean?
Well,
you can just
when you
see
get
that.
the sequel trilogy and you realize that prequels were not so bad.
People, yeah, that's a whole different can of
Yeah,
worms. But I'm just saying, in terms of just the fandom in general,
yeah.
they've re-embraced him to the point where he can now show up at conventions and people go like crazy for him and
And
cheer and
and
all
and
that
he's
kind of
and he's
stuff
and he's come back into the
into
universe.
the fold. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
he played in the Obi-Wan series, and
Yeah, and
yeah,
he's now getting back into
he's
doing
gonna be in
acting
the
and whatnot.
Ahsoka
But
series, I
but in
believe.
Shattered Glass, he is very good for
Yeah,
this role, and like we said, it is based on a true story of Stephen Glass. He worked at that magazine that Stephen was talking about from '95 to '98, and then kind of all of this stuff transpired in real life.
yeah,
Coincidentally, the real life Stephen Glass like had a whole life afterward. He's actually still around. He's
yeah.
still around, the real guy. He tried to become a lawyer afterward, um, and he actually did. He did go to law school, got a law degree, and he like passed the bar exam, but they wouldn't give him a license to practice in certain in the states that he wanted to. I think it was like New York and New Jersey or something like that. Because of all the stuff that happened that transpired at that time that this movie depicts.
Yeah.
Basically, all of the fabrications and all this kind of stuff that you see kind of transpire throughout this movie. And it's kind of like Steven said, he tries to deflect and like make up different reasons why things are not quite adding up with his
Yeah,
story.
and he was always like he's always kinda like, "Are you mad at me?" He's always asking that, "Are you mad? Is there something wrong? Are you mad at me?" Like, he'd always play victim,
Right.
you know?
Right. And you can kind of see this manipulation of human emotions and the
Yeah.
human tendencies. And the movie has a great cast in it, which we really didn't mention.
Oh,
Stephen
yeah,
did
it's
mention
Peter
Peter
Sarsgaard.
Sarsgaard, but Chloe Sevigny is in the film as well as Rosario Dawson. Steve Zahn is in the film too. Hank Azaria is in the film as well. And it's an interesting kind of early 2000s indie film that doesn't seem to get a lot of play. And I don't think a lot of people
Yeah.
are aware of this movie and aware that Hayden Christensen did anything other than Star Wars. You know what I mean?
I mean, I wonder if, if things would have went differently if he'd have done more, like,
Mm,
I don't know. I mean, it's the chance you take doing something so large as Star Wars that it end up defining your whole career, and it kinda can ruin it, you know?
very much
Unfortunately
so. It,
fortunately for some people, it's turned out better, like, it didn't hurt Ewan McGregor's career.
right.
People love Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi even without not even if they don't like them movies. Um, but, somebody like Daniel Radcliffe for Harry Potter, it's worked out fine.
Typecast, you know what I mean? They're
Yeah,
always
yeah,
typecast. Even someone like Harrison Ford, who has had a
yeah,
monstrously long career doing all kinds of movies, even another iconic character. He's still people still ask him about Star Wars, and he doesn't want to talk about it because he's more than that. And Hayden Christensen is kind of more than just that iconic role.
yeah,
But yeah, Steven's right. You do get kind of typecast, you do get overshadowed in these big roles. But I find that also a lot of those actors do end up going back to doing indie movies. Someone
yeah.
like Robert Pattinson, who was in a large kind of ensemble franchise film with Twilight films. The rest of his career has been mostly indie stuff. A
Mhm.
couple of bigger things here and there. Obviously, he was in the recent Batman film. He was in a
Sure.
Christopher Nolan film. I mean, those are not small things, but
I think it
yeah,
really depends on, I mean, who you got around you, agent, you can get your way out of it. It did take Pattinson like a few years to like get out from under Twilight, I think.
mm,
And then he
mm,
finally did. I think Good Time was the first one where I was like, "Oh yeah, there he is."
mm.
Oh, well, he did. What was the Cosmopolitus?
Cosmopolis, the David
Cosmopolis. Yeah,
Cronenberg film.
that was another one that
He
was
was
like
in Maps to the Stars, I think,
Maps to the Stars.
another
Um,
Cronenberg film.
so he
He
did.
was in
He started.
the Rover,
Yeah,
which I
he
thought was
started.
I
Yeah,
think criminally
you know what?
underrated.
The Rover was the first. The Rover was the first film he was in where he like I think stepped out as like, look, this is who I really am. Like this is the type of stuff I really want to do. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately for Hayden Christensen, it hadn't went completely to plan. Hopefully, maybe this second kind of step back out will help put him in a direction where he can do more stuff instead of
Mm,
kind of like how Josh Hartnett's kind of stepping back out. Josh Hartnett
right,
stepping
right.
back out did the M Night Shyamalan movie, and now he's seemingly doing a lot of stuff now. So
It's interesting is that he never really fully went away. He's just been doing stuff that's relatively under the radar.
Yeah, yeah.
But back to that release, what do we have for special features? Just
Well,
because I don't know if the DVD even had anything interesting.
yeah. Well, it's not, obviously, guys. And as we always say about Imprint Films, they always load. They usually really focus on features, special features, because they know that sometimes they're not giving us some new restoration or some new thing, but they're going to load you up with new contextual stuff. So, they got a new interview with the director Billy Ray from 2025 called Evolution and Education. And I watched this one. It was really good. I think it's about 30 minutes long. And he just kind of goes over getting into this, what was right before him doing this film, like what led up to it, and this being his first feature debut. And then after that, kind of the process of making it and like just talking about his experience with making it. It was really good. Then you got every quote and every detail, an interview with the producer, Craig Bogan. I can't say that last name. Baumgarten. Okay. And then you have editorial integrity, interview with editor Jeffrey Ford. And then I watched this 60 Minutes. They have an archive 60 Minutes episode on Stephen Glass, which was where I got to learn about Stephen Glass, and you get the real Stephen Glass in there. And that was fascinating, just getting to see the real person after seeing the performance. And it just shows you how good Hayden Christensen was. Like when you watch the real Stephen Glass, you're like, I can see it. Like he's got it. So yeah, good features on here. It's got this. I like this actually inside cover art here.
Oh, let me see it. Oh, I do like that. I think that may be one of the posters.
I think it's one of the posters. I like that one the best, I think. But of course, here's the internal right there. Got some art on the inside. Looks good. But yeah, good release, man. And obviously, this is an upgrade of something that needed an upgrade for a long time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, just checking on the website, it's got to be a world premiere. For worldwide first on Blu-ray for Shattered Glass.
Yep. But that's Shattered Glass. It's definitely, if you're trying to add to your Hayden Christensen collection or your Billy Ray collection, there you go. But let's move on to Andrew's. He's got one. I have not seen this one, so I don't really have anything to say. So Andrew's going to take the floor on this one.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much. I've been waiting to talk about this movie.
Oh, God.
Probably since the first time we started this podcast many years ago. Probably even before so.
That's so weird.
So In the Bedroom is a Best Picture nominee from 2001. Go back in time to 2001. And it's a movie
if we do that, then we're gonna have to hear boy bands.
Yeah, well, yeah, you get the closeout, get everything.
Keep top now,
I think even before. I feel like that's more 90s.
It is, yeah.
I feel like
it's more like ba 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 ba.
That may even be before that too.
Son of a bitch, just go. Just never
mind. Let's move on. Anywho, obviously an interesting time in terms of history, but Best Picture winner circa 2000 Best Picture nominee. It was nominated for 5 Oscars during that time as well. Directed by Todd Field. Todd Field is a director many of you probably do not know because he hasn't directed much. He directed this movie, In the Bedroom, and then in 2006 he directed the movie Little Children, which starred Kate Winslet, Patrick Wilson, Jackie Earle Haley's in that film. Another kind of book adaptation. And that was kind of his thing, was adapting like books, was something that Todd Field tried to do throughout his career. But from 2006 to 2022, he didn't direct anything. So, and the movie he directed in 2022 is the movie Tar, starring Kate Blanchett, which of course was also nominated for a bunch of awards, and was critically acclaimed and whatnot. It was the same thing with Little Children, the same thing with this movie. Between those 3 movies, I think they were like a combined 15 Oscar nominations or whatever. So every time this guy showed up to direct a movie, people loved it. Well, at least critics did. But this was kind of his first major hit. Not the first movie he directed, but his first kind of major hit. And this movie stars a cast of people that you may be familiar with. Tom Wilkinson, Sissy Spacek, Marissa Tomei, the actor Nick Stahl, who in the late 90s, early 2000s, mostly the early 2000s, was kind of an actor on the rise. Nick Stahl was he was in Sin City, he was in Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines. He was in a bunch of things, and then his career he kind of like disappeared from the scene. One of those kind of like, you know, fast risers to, star disappearing essentially. I think he's still doing work to this day. I know he had some personal troubles several years ago. He was in the news for that, kind of similar to other young stars and whatnot. I mean, we were just talking about Star Wars. If you're familiar with the young actor who played Anakin in Episode 1, he's had his certain personal issues as well. But Nick Stahl was like in a bunch of like kind of relatively well-known films in the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s. So star on the rise. So this movie takes place, actually it also has someone people may know as well, William, I think it's Maypother. I think that's how you pronounce his name. It is the younger cousin of Tom Cruise, who was in the show Lost. And he's a character actor who's been in a bunch of things, but he's the younger cousin of Tom Cruise. And if you see him, you'll probably know him. He has a recognizable face. But anywho, so this movie is a relatively low-key drama based on like a 1979 short story called The Killings, I believe, or I think that's what it's called. And you have Tom Wilkinson and Sissy Spacek are a couple that is married, and their son is portrayed by Nick Stahl. This takes place in like small town Maine, northern New England. I mean, they're listening to literally Red Sox games on the radio during it, so you can kind of get a sense of where geographically they are.
Why you like this movie.
Geographically where they are. And to tell you, it was a bit of a nostalgic trip for me, because on the radio you're hearing like certain players and certain teams and all this kind of stuff. It's like, oh yeah, I remember being 14 years old and listening to the Red Sox on the radio. But their son is Nick Stahl, and he's about like college aged, I would say, early, probably late teens, early 20s, more likely early 20s. And he's dating an older woman in Marissa Tomei. And Marissa Tomei is an older woman. She's going through a separation, a divorce, perhaps not quite divorced yet, but from the William Maypother character. And they had a volatile separation. So the Nick Stahl character's kind of getting caught up in that, and there are young children involved as well. And his parents, Sissy Spacek and Tom Wilkinson, are incredibly concerned about him being caught up in all of that stuff. You know what I mean? Because it can be a very tumultuous situation, especially if you're someone who's kind of being thrust into someone else's personal affairs. You know what I mean? Someone else's personal baggage when you're getting into a relationship and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is that they are kind of very close and very much in love with each other. So that is, of course, the thing keeping the Nick Stahl and the Marissa Tomei characters together. I won't get into what ends up happening because I feel like it would be a spoiler. But let's just say there's something that occurs after the first act of this movie that changes the film, and then the characters that are left, or the characters that are have to deal with it, are thrust in a very serious situation to where it becomes an incredibly relatable story, especially for parents. Especially for older parents who have one child, and what the strain of all of this drama is on them. And the film focuses heavily on Tom Wilkinson and Sissy Spacek, and they end up carrying this movie. And it is some of the best acting you'll see between two kind of relatively well-known actors of our time. This was the movie that really got me into being like, Tom Wilkinson's one of the best actors around. I became a big Tom Wilkinson fan like the late 2000s because I saw Michael Clayton. After I saw Michael Clayton and where he steals every scene in that movie, I was like, who is this guy? I've seen him before, but I got to see more of his stuff. So that's when I went back to watch In the Bedroom. And then, of course, he was in Batman Begins. He's been in several other movies. He recently passed away over the last few years. And I always thought he was such an amazing actor. and he really carries the good 2/3 of the later half of this movie, and it's really phenomenal. It's just, I think, one of the most underappreciated drama films of the last 25 years or so. I think when you get into movies of like lists of like best of the decade or best of the century, I feel like In the Bedroom's in there somewhere. Like, it's that good of a movie. And the thing is, it's not, like I said, it's not bombastic, it's not flashy, it's not something that I think is going to really capture a lot of people's, zeitgeist of the moment and whatnot, but it's just all really, really well done, and it's all based on acting and writing and themes. And a lot of heavy, heavy, real human themes are in this movie. And it's a really powerhouse of a movie, a kind of a gut punch of a film. Um, but like I said, this is the first time it's ever been on Blu-ray. It's a world premiere. I've had my old DVD, my old used DVD here forever. This had nothing in the way of special features, so this is kind of a miracle. This is a miracle. It's got an audio commentary with actually our friend here from Chasing Labels, Adrian Martin. It's a brand new commentary from him. Paralyzing Landscapes, a video essay by filmmaker Carl Alaser from 2025. Bedroom Problems, Authors and Adaptation, video essay by film programmer Alex Guter. That's also from 2025. And then Defending in the Bedroom, an interview with actress Karen Allen. Karen Allen from Indiana Jones fame plays a rather small role in this movie. And there's like a 15 or so, I think it's actually longer. It's a rather long interview of her just talking about how she was approached for the project. She was actually originally approached to play the Sissy Spacek role.
Mm.
And they basically, and the Todd Field came to her and basically told her, okay, we're in the process of talking with Sissy Spacek for this role, and we may or may not get her. And if we don't get her, we want you. But if we do get her, you have to understand that, she was our first choice. That's how she starts off. That's how she starts off the interview.
Don't be offended.
So don't be offended, basically. And then she goes into kind of the process and whatnot. But that's it for here. But they're rather lengthy, but going from like 0 to something is better than nothing. And the movie, I don't know what type of master they used. I don't know if it's a newer scan. I don't know anything like that, but it's got to be better than, it's definitely better than what's on this old DVD. You know what I mean? Just because any upgrade is better than no upgrade after waiting, oh goodness, it's been 24 years since the movie came out, and since it's been about 20 years since Blu-rays have been around. So you figure at some point,
yeah, it's been in Miramax hell. That's what happened.
Yeah, it is a Miramax film.
Yeah.
You're right. So it's made its way out of whatever, like Steven said, Miramax hell being, moved around a bunch of different places to find it out.
Yeah.
And it's a really, really, great, I think, underrated movie that no one talks about, but it's, like I said, super critically acclaimed, a Best Picture nominee from the time. So yeah, I can't recommend this movie enough to people who like really kind of mature adult drama types of films. And yeah, I like it so much I even have the screenplay. So it gets like a triple.
All right, so now he's going to read the screenplay to us.
It's a good screenplay. I think it was nominated too. So, yeah, I think if I remember correctly, it was Best Picture. Tom Wilkinson was nominated, Sissy Spacek was nominated, and Marissa Tomei was nominated as well. So it's it's got some pedigree to it, as they say. But yeah, that's In the Bedroom.
All right. Well, that's good stuff. I got to get around to watching it. We will finish this review off with the third film we have with us today, and I think probably the most well-known, maybe.
At least amongst cinephiles, definitely.
Yeah. That is Man Bites Dog from 1992. I believe... I don't know why it's blank in my mind. What is the origin of this film?
It's from Belgium.
Belgium. Okay, cool. So this is done in, I guess you could say that this is kind of documentary style, mockumentary style of film that follows essentially a sociopath serial killer, played for dark humor. and I wish this was an unwatched pile because I would match this with Behind the Mask all day. Because Behind the Mask very much takes its cue from this movie. But of course takes it to a different level, kind of putting it straight up on a serial killer, like a slasher, 80s slasher villain. But in Man Bites Dog, it's done in a very pushing the limits way.
I would say goes beyond the
they
limits.
just piss on that line and then step over it and take a shit. Yeah. So the main character, his name is Ben, and he starts out killing a woman right off the bat. Yeah, the first scene of the movie, he strangles a woman on a train. And I think that's kind of the main thing about this movie is that there is a documentary crew that we're aware of the whole time. And as the movie goes along, they get more involved in it, but it's all, like, I think that's part of the themes of this story, not only themes of like our sensitivity to violence and things like how desensitized we are, but also like, just the fact that, I lost my train of thought. The desensitizing of it is the main thing. But also being like voyeurs, being, similar to Peeping Tom, like that, a way of making the audience feel like they're kind of involved in it. And you like, just the more you watch this, the more you're like saying something about yourself, which makes this kind of a hard watch, it's not a feel good movie.
Oh God, no.
There are things that happen in this movie that are for sure memorable, things that you can't get it out of your mind.
It stays with you.
Violence towards children, sexual violence,
gruesome,
and not played and played in a very kind of flippant way,
Yeah.
So
very much so.
Andrew.
And this is like, kind of. I like what you're saying with the comparison to Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, which that takes it more kind of like a fictitious way. You know what I mean? Because in that movie, they mention like, they're mentioning like Mike Myers and Jason Voorhees and all that stuff.
That movie's more self-aware.
Yeah, and so that distance it from reality, as opposed to Man Bites Dog, which is like you're watching a sociopathic, nihilistic killer in real life going around and doing this.
Yeah.
And so and the way in which you may be saying, oh, that's gruesome, that's harsh, that's all that kind of stuff. It is, but it's also a black comedy, which is which is definitely part of the whole thing where like this is so absurd, even though it happens in everyday life, yet you're supposed to laugh at it because you don't know how else to react. It's kind of like the way in which you watch American Psycho, where it's a satire because it's so over the top, it's so ridiculous, but no, this guy is we're making fun of something that's real. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No, I was going to say that, and then, like Stephen was saying, as the movie goes along, the camera crew, in quotes, gets more involved in what's happening. So, like, it's also a commentary on, like, we keep watching it, consuming this type of violence to the point where we kind of thrust ourselves into it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That we're kind of like Stephen was saying, it's like we're watching it, and we're like participating almost by association in some.
Yeah, it's like if you see somebody do something bad and don't do nothing about it, it makes you just as bad.
Yeah, it's almost like kind of like what Hitchcock would do in movies like in certain movies like Psycho,
like Rope.
Yeah, or even like Psycho, where like we see kind of the killer's perspective when he pulls back the curtain and commits the murder. It's like we're doing it. You know what I mean?
When he's looking through the peepholes, we see his
and stuff like that, or any type of point of view from their perspective in any of those types of movies. It's like they're doing that on purpose to put us in the uncomfortable position of being that person. And this movie keeps doing that over and over again and progressively getting more and more excessive.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's got to be a controversial film. I know it's NC-17 rated film, so it like the MPAA I guess didn't want anything to do with it, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, and for reasons like Steven said, there's no sense of like violence it doesn't go towards. In every way, everybody's kind of a victim, and the character that we're following along here, like Steven mentioned, is a despicable as you can get character. He is racist, sexist, like you said, just completely sociopathic, nihilistic. Like he'll just be having a conversation with you while committing a murder. You know
Well,
what I
like,
mean?
yeah, one of the,
Just like saying like talking about the weather and then just like strangling someone while doing it. It's
yeah.
like,
I
oh,
mean, like,
well, like the clouds are today. You
and he
know?
goes through so many different variations of killing people, down to even just scaring the shit out of an old lady, and then she has a heart attack. And
Right.
he's like, I didn't have to waste a bullet on her.
Yeah, but he's
Like,
also like being instructive towards
yeah,
as well, where he's like, this is how you do this. This is how
yeah,
you do that because, it costs less, it takes less time, it's so much easier than having to do this. This person will have more money at this particular time of the month than that particular time of the
yeah,
month. And he goes through and it's so like detailed, like he likes to attack mailmen at the beginning of the month because that's when people will probably be getting like their benefit checks or something, so he can
yeah,
clean up on that, or they'll be
yeah.
getting gifts at a certain time of the month or whatever.
Because he looks at
He's
it this as
so
he looks at this as a job too, because it's how he
yeah,
makes his money. He makes
but
money
it's
off
so
of doing
cruel.
it.
But he's so matter of fact about it.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like it's just like a regular normal thing to him.
yeah,
It's not some deviant nature, you know?
yeah. I think and I was doing research for something else that kind of associated itself with this genre in a way, but like, sometimes people have a hard time thinking like, wow, what a dark subject matter to have comedy involved in it. And I was doing some research, and some Jordan Peele had done this like talk with somebody, and he had talked about like, because he's very very much involved in this genre where he does horror films, but there's always this towing this line of some comedy in his films. And he says that what's so difficult and but it's also so accessible to mix horror and comedy is because they're so close to each other when
Mm.
it comes to like the reaction you're getting from the audience. Like they're both reactions where you're getting in these highs after or being scared, like, and so towing that line can be difficult, but when done right can really work well together. And so this film, it sounds like something you should never laugh at, but towing that line is what makes the film dangerous and like exhilarating to watch in some kind of odd way,
Yeah,
like that's
something can be both funny and incredibly disturbing at the same time. And
yeah.
some directors and writers know how to do that, like you're saying with Jordan Peele, because I'm thinking of certain scenes in Get Out
Oh yeah.
that are on the surface funny, but then when you think about the meaning behind them, or when certain things are revealed later in that film, you end up rethinking about that scene. You're like, oh my goodness, that is horrific.
Yeah.
There's a whole sequence in the movie where they have this big get together at that house, and
Hmm.
people are kind of like complimenting the character for different reasons, and then you find out later on why in which they were talking like that. And at the time when you're watching the scenes, it's like this is ridiculously stupid. Like this is over the top. Like why would anybody talk to someone like that? But then later
Yeah.
on, you realize why, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, that is kind of horrific. So you toe that, like you said, towing that line is not easy to do, because you can go either way anytime. It's like walking a tightrope. You can fall
Yeah.
off at any moment.
And this film really, like we said at the beginning, it really kind of goes over the line. And really, I think this movie gets into a territory where it's either going to be for you or it's not. Um,
Yeah.
it really is. It's really not something like Get Out. I think is way more accessible, but something like Man Bites Dog is definitely going to be something where it's definitely going to push some people away, and they're
Yeah,
like, this
there are
is
some
just too
moments
much.
in here that have to be
Yeah,
forewarned, and you have to be
yeah, yeah,
forewarned about it.
yeah,
What do we have here in terms of special features? Because this
Yeah.
movie has only been really available on DVD from Criterion for like the last forever, pretty much. And there's only like 2 special features on that old DVD. So what do we have on this one?
Yeah, so we got some new features. You got Sam Deegan does a commentary, and then we have somebody we're very we had our own Chasing Labels. Sarah Appleton
Oh,
does
nice.
a document. She of course did a found footage documentary not too long ago, and so this movie is a found footage movie. Man with a movie camera: the found footage legacy of Man Bites Dog. There's some deleted and alternate scenes. And then we have a short film, No C4 for Daniel, aka Pazday C4, poor Daniel. I guess that's a short film from the director. I'm
hmm
guessing.
It's a
And
student
so,
short film by the filmmakers.
okay.
That's also on the Criterion.
Okay. So you got some Criterion Collection poured over here, but that's it. I think, just that I know I've heard the Sam. I haven't listened to it yet. Commentaries are kind of hard to do in short amount of time, but I've heard that the Sam Deegan commentary is really good. Yeah, I mean, this was my first time watching this film, and it is a kind of a hard watch. Being a parent now, there's a particular scene with the kid that I'm just like, oh my
Mm,
god, like
yeah, I remember that scene. It's rough.
it's rough. So I just be forewarned that if you're sensitive to kind of excessive violence, and now it helps that the movie's in black and white. I think it helps a little bit. All the blood that would be there is in black and white.
Yeah.
I think it visually kind of helps, but yeah, it's definitely a difficult subject. But I think I would say, I mean, I think a lot of people were influenced by this film going forward. When it comes to how they delve into the themes of violence. Something that comes to mind is the French film that we always talk about. Was it with the gun? I'm trying to remember. What's the one that has oh man. Come on, help me, Andrew.
I'm trying to think of which one you're talking
French
about.
film where the guys get the gun from the cops. La Haine.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay,
La
yeah.
Haine. A movie about a group of young guys that find a gun, and that was a cop that had gotten beaten up the night from a raid, a group of protesting the night before, and so yeah, I mean that's about violence and about that's of course a lot more tamer, but definitely a movie that's in the vein of that kind of the impact of what violence has in this movie is very similarly impactful in that movie. And I think, like I said, the towing that line of comedy and drama and horror is something I think that people try to explore like this film did too, moving forward. So, yeah, pretty unforgettable movie. Once you see it, you can't forget it.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that's always on like movies you must see.
Yeah.
Like a must see movies list, or maybe a movie that's like the most controversial list or whatever. Um, just because of its depiction of violence, and it's like I said, nihilistic depiction of violence is rather controversial.
Yeah.
So yeah, Man Bites Dog. It's been like I said, like a cinephile staple for years.
Yeah.
It's always movies you hear about from like big time film buffs and whatnot. Like I said, it's been part of the Criterion Collection for a very long time. Let me see actually. What number is it on Criterion? It's gotta be an early one. Let's see. Hold on. I'm on the website now for some reason. Oh, Spy number 165. There you go.
Early.
So it's pretty early. And that's from the DVD, renumbering days. So yeah, I've always heard about the movie. I saw it years ago. I feel like it's a tough recommendation to people, but you got to go into it being made of kind of strong type of stuff to be able to withstand the violence that's in it, and also the style. The mockumentary style is something you've got to get used to too, because it doesn't really flow like a 3-act structure.
No.
Although there is a plot line going on within it. We didn't really mention that for obvious reasons, but because you don't want to spoil things here.
No.
But there is a bit of a plot that plays out during the movie, so it's not it's not quite just the violence of
It's
it
not
all.
quite French New Wave. Or
Yeah,
anything.
it's not. There isn't just violence of it all. There is a plot that goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah, other mockumentaries before it were more in the straight comedy realm. Like I'm thinking of This
Yeah.
is Spinal Tap.
Yeah.
Oh, like right away, right away.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking about most of the time, anyway.
Yeah, that's your life, right?
Yeah, I guess so. But I guess that's it for everything
Yeah.
we got to talk about from Imprint for the month of March. At least the stuff that we got our to feast our eyes and hands and minds on, really. So once again, it is Man Bites Dog, Shattered Glass, and In the Bedroom
That's
is
right.
the 3 films that we got to talk about. I think these are all Blu-ray premieres, coincidentally. Worldwide Blu-ray premieres.
That's something good that Imprint's been doing, man. That's I think why people have continued to even though it can even be difficult for people abroad to get their hands on these or want to pay the premium price for them.
Right.
I think they recognize that the Imprint keeps putting out stuff that nobody else is. So,
and we do want to I do want to mention that these are all able to play in your Region A players here in the
yes.
US, because technically Australia is able to do that. So these will play in your regular Region A players. You don't have to worry about those things, just in case people don't know.
Yeah.
And people are worried about whether they want to import these or buy them here from various places like Orbit DVD or Diabolic DVD, or get them directly from Viavision's website. You can do that.
Yeah. But that is it for this Imprint review. Please subscribe to the channel, guys. Let us know if you've seen any of these films, what you think of them. Let us know if you like them, dislike them. Please subscribe to the channel. You got Chasing Labels. You got the Unwatched pile. You have now the new returning of Movies Down Memory Lane, which is going to become a staple. And so just keep up with all that stuff. But with the review done, I hope everybody has a good rest of their day, night, whenever you watch this, and we'll see you around.